So about 2 days ago, there was a Reddit post put up about the concerns about the new LFG tool on the beta. I reached out to the author of the post and asked if he wouldn't mind me covering it in a video. Because actually, it's really good. Some really well thought out points. You're probably like, why are you sat in a car? I'm waiting for the kids to go kickboxing, but let's look at this LFG post. So first of all, he starts with a disclaimer saying, I do not want this to turn into a thread about random dungeon finder. This is only a thread about the specifics of the new LFG tool in comparison to what we have in TBC Classic, and whether it resolves any of the common grouping problems we have currently. Is the new LFG tool any good? This is a topic of much discussion on the official RAF beta forums, but I have not seen much discussion of it here. So being here, like I said, this is on Reddit. For those without beta access, I've made an image gallery of the tool and its screens and options, so we can have a quick look at that if you haven't seen these already. I'll just skim through these pictures for you, but I'll show you in-game exactly how it looks and what it looks like. But if you watch me for any length of time, you've probably already seen the video that I've done that covered this anyway. So we've got several concerns about the tool. The first being the group browser makes no distinction between players looking for group and group leaders looking for more. Currently on the beta, most players are listing themselves for dungeons they're interested in doing and then just waiting while they go back to questing. They're hoping someone will take the initiative to start a group and invite them. That's sort of working with a very limited population of the beta, but given the minimal filtering ability of the tool, on a live server with any decent population, I suspect the group browser tab will be so cluttered as to be almost useless. It will just be too hard to pass all the listings in a timely manner to find the group or individuals you're looking for. And he's absolutely right. I've got a really good example of this. So people have come on the stream on Scottejaye 87 on Twitch, by the way, and they've been saying like, well, you know, what's the new tool like? Are you using it? Is everyone using it? And we scanned through the group listings and we could find a tank, a healer, multiple DPS, but they're all listed separately and none of them are starting the group. So there was a full group sat there waiting to go. They all wanted the same dungeons, but no one started the group. So the custom note feature is not nearly as helpful as it could be, and as I think we were all hoping it would be. For one, you cannot see people's custom listings in the base group browser list. You have to mouse over or select a specific listing to see any custom note. For two, you cannot do a custom text search or filter on common notes. So for example, I cannot search for listings with a custom note that contains GDKP nor filter them out, which is absolutely true. And again, whilst I was just talking over that, you've seen what the custom note feature looks like, but not being able to filter, so it is just a note that you have to physically check every single one, without being able to filter in or out options. So let's say someone was looking for an achievement run or something like that, being able to just type in achievement and it will only show you the listings where the custom note has got the word achievement in, just for example. It would be really useful, and this is hardly being used. It's the beta, you've got to remember that. So when it comes to live servers, and there's tens of thousands on some of these servers all using this, plus advertising in it, you've got to remember that people will be advertising boosts or gold selling websites or whatever. Like, it's going to happen. It happens on retail, so there will be clutter in there as well that you ideally want to be able to filter out, but you probably not going to be able to. So next he said the group browser tab doesn't auto update, so you have to manually refresh it regularly while you're looking for a group to join or members to invite to make sure they're still available or to see if there's new options. Now I would say again, because this is a comparison to what we've got in TBC opposed to what random dungeon finder could be or anything like that, putting that all aside like the author originally intended, even with an add-on like LFG bulletin board, it's always updating, because as new messages enter the chat, then obviously new events will enter LFG bulletin board, or updates will enter LFG bulletin board. In terms of actually being able to run around and do things as well, you can have LFG bulletin board resized and just sat above your chat box, so you can more or less just run around and carry on doing whatever you're doing whilst looking, for a group. You could be stood grinding and still be looking for a group. Because of the way the new LFG tool works, obviously it's quite big, it's quite intrusive on your screen. So the chances of being able to do other things whilst also looking at that and also clicking refresh on it quite regularly, I agree, bit of a pain. Also, the group invite button, which you might use instead of sending a whisper, looks and is exactly like a regular group invite. It gives no information about the person requesting the invite other than their name. And if multiple people request an invite to your group, it just pops them up in, first out order without regard to even basic group composition. You'd end up with an all DPS group or a group with 3 healers or whatever if you just accept the requests in order. Back indoors now, we can carry on. Now looking at one of his screenshots, I suppose the biggest issue here is sort of where he's listed himself for a group and then that group leader has invited him and there's no information on the invite. It just looks like a standard group invite. So while similar applies when it comes to someone requesting to join the group, also if you're actively looking for a group, unless someone actually whispers you and says, hi, this invite's for Utgard Keep, it is just going to look like a normal invite. What would be nice is on that invite, if the person who's the leader has invited you using the tool, it sort of tags that event, the event that you've actually created in it. So on that invite, it will say accept and decline, and maybe below it, it will say UK group, and then even little icons with who's currently in the group, a tank, a DPS, maybe it needs a healer. Something like that would just make it a lot cleaner. And then also, since you cannot use /4, which is obviously the looking for group channel, unless you're listed in the tool, there's no indication that Blizzard is planning to add an alternative global chat channel. I think it's likely the tool will be further clogged up with what are effectively fake listings, just so people can use /4. And the interesting thing actually is when you're listed in the group, people are still just spamming LFG. I don't want to say no one's looking at the tool, but like you can see here, looking for 2 more DPS Violet Hold, looking for Hills Nexus. So you still really are looking at a chat box in some way, shape or form, to the point where actually having it looking cleaner with something like LFG bulletin board is probably still better. So he says, fundamentally, while this is a more functional and better looking tool than the completely ignored TBC Classic tool, I'm not sure what problem it really solves. Completely agree. I don't think it will reduce the time it takes to find a group for the content you want to do by any meaningful measure. This is especially problematic in Wrath. The dungeons are so quick and easy that at least if you're DPS, you're likely to spend more time finding a group and traveling to the dungeon than you will spend inside. And this is actually something I brought up on a podcast a few days ago, and I said more or less exactly this. The point is that the heroics are so easy, and you can literally get a Utgard Keep heroic done, for example, in like 10, 12 minutes. Do you really want to be spending 20, 30 minutes looking for a group in chat when you're going to spend half that time actually doing the content? It also doesn't reduce the amount of attention you have to put into finding a group, and therefore reduce standing around in the capital spamming and staring at a tool. You'll just be spamming the refresh button instead of /4 and staring at the group browser page rather than bulletin board. And I totally get what he means, but I still think people are going to be staring at their chat box just as much as they are now, apart from they won't be looking at LFG bulletin board, they'll be looking at their actual chat box, unless LFG bulletin board does some updates. Because, like I say, people are still putting the LFM, LFG in the LFG channel, and people are probably more likely to see that while they're running around questing or doing whatever, than actually just having that box open, which is the actual LFG tool, and clicking refresh periodically and scrolling through loads of listings. Also, it doesn't do anything to improve the efficiency of grouping tanks, healers and DPS in the appropriate 1-1-3 ratio, nor to further incentivize the players to play tank or healer roles to reduce the disparity that leads to long search times for DPS. Wrath itself may do that to some extent with the introduction of DKs, the minimization of the importance of watching threat and dual spec, but this tool by itself doesn't contribute. Which is absolutely right. The tool doesn't do anything to even help. And even the people that are willing to tank, they're still just sat in there, and without someone taking that initiative to create the group, everyone's just sat around essentially doing nothing. It does nothing to encourage people to overcome their general tendency to not lead groups, both in live and on the beta. Lots of people are just sitting there waiting for someone else to start the invites and take charge. Exactly what I just said. It does less to help you curate your group makeup and experience than LFG bulletin board, nor does it do anything to reduce the unpleasant and frankly unnecessary gatekeeping against certain classes and specs when forming groups. And that's absolutely true, and it's something that Random Dungeon Finder does well. It doesn't discriminate against your spec. It's just looking for a DPS. It don't care what DPS it is. Whereas you're still going to get people who are like, oh, I'm not taking an assassination rogue because we want AoE to cleave through everything. Oh, I'm not taking this marksman hunter. I'm not, it's going to be still people picking and choosing. And those specs that are not looked on particularly fondly by, the majority of people are still they're going to be the ones that just sat in the LFG tool and not actually getting groups. And finally, it doesn't do anything to encourage more pro-social behavior. The times I've used it on the beta, there was very little communication as the group formed, absolutely no talking while we ran the dungeon, and then just GG at the end. I mean, he's literally said, again, on the podcast on Thursday, I said exactly the same thing. Blizzard trying to protect this social environment that we've got going on in Heroic Dungeons that I personally haven't seen exist for a long time. It is, you just want to get in, you want to get it done. And actually, TBC heroics are a lot more difficult and they take a lot longer, and they've historically been more difficult. And then when we get to Cataclysm, they're even more difficult. It's those sort of times where, actually, you're having to talk about who's CCing what, who's doing, this, that, and the other. Whereas Wrath, you can go in with practically no gear, just full greens, and just smash through them with literally no need to communicate. And that's the most frustrating thing about not having Random Dungeon Finder. It's not the sort of content that we really need focused efforts on, or even communication to do. They are just that easy that you just want to be chucked in, get it done, and get out. It's more of a chore than going in there for fun. That's how I feel about them personally anyway. So that is the one sad thing about no random dungeon finder, is the fact that it's just prolonging the amount of time it takes for you to get into this group for such a minimal amount of time actually spent with those people, and no one probably wants to talk to you anyway. So that's it. That's the group finder in a nutshell, and the guy done an absolutely amazing job of the post, so if you do use Reddit, be sure to go and upvote it. He did also mention that he'll be discussing this on the next Countdown to Classic podcast that goes out, so be sure to check that out. And until next time, like, subscribe. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Check out the Rested XP guide. It's working on the beta now as well. If you've got beta access, I'm going to actually be using it on stream today. So come check me out on twitch.tv/Scottejaye87 and watch me level either an Enhancement Shaman or a Rep Paladin using Rested XP. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.